Hey everyone, it's Elise. Welcome back to my channel where I like to talk about all things personal finance. And this week's video is about why I think HOAs need to be resolved, but more importantly, giving an update on a last update of how I got my HOA to fix my building. And I have to talk about number one, the resolution, and number two, the actual proof. Like, these two things are really important for the things that I want to do in the future. Before I talk about the future, I want to talk about the details of what happened in these last month and a half regarding the blasted kitchen sink and the plumbing that they were responsible for. So when I last left you, it had been 3 months since I let them know in our public HOA meeting that I was living in squalor, and I had let them try to figure out what was going on. They had not found a plumber, and I was getting frustrated because my plumber had left for his summer vacation. I was at my wit's end, and I was literally going to walk out and go to the front office where the doorman is and demand that I speak to someone from the HOA. Luckily, there was someone who was there, and I told her I'm about to get that retainer on that attorney. And whenever they hear that, they get scared. She says, "Oh no, you're right. We should have taken care of that. It's not your responsibility. I'll get back to you. Give me your number, blase, blase." A little bit later on that day, I got a call from the vice president of the HOA, who specifically, he's the one that knew about this first and never let the president, the secretary, and the treasurer know about this. So he's not my favorite person to talk to. But when I guess the lady said, "Y'all need to get on this because she's serious," he called me in the evening. It was after 8 p.m. and he was trying to fish around and get information because that's the type of person he is. And I called him out on it. I was like, "Where's your plumber?" He was like, "Well, what happened to your plumber?" I said, "My plumber is out of town," and he knew about that. And he was like, "Yes." And he told me that the plumber that he had, they actually set one up and one didn't show up, blase swaze. And I said, "There's more than one in the greater proper Miami-Dade County. It's your responsibility." And he was like, "Okay, you're right." And then he said something like, "I'm just calling to make sure you know that we're not neglecting you. And neglecting me is gonna be determined by a judge. You're not the judge nor the jury, sir. And I know you're calling me to see how serious I am about this lawsuit." We ended the call agreeing that I would try to get a hold of my plumber, and then he would try to get a hold of a plumber. I knew when I followed up with him, because we decided to follow up within 48 hours, I was not going to ask my plumber to do it because my boyfriend said something that makes good sense. They have a horrible track record, and I would not put it past them to say once my plumber did his work, if it didn't work, that it must have been my plumber that messed up the piping system. That's 40 plus years old. So when I called him back, I just said he wasn't available. And "Where's your plumber? Sir, where is your plumber?" And by that point, he said, "Okay, we can't wait any longer. We'll move forward with someone. They're just getting some details, blase, blase." Okay, perfect. At this point, I think they're tired of me, but they realize I'm not going away. And they go ahead and call their handy dandy plumber. And guess who that plumber is? The same one that I've been dealing with since Thanksgiving of last year. So we're coming up almost a year of this going on. And I, in my heart of hearts, feel like they have some type of friends hookup situation, which that wouldn't be my business if they were dealing with that man and his home. But when you're dealing with other people and you're dealing with an HOA that is governed by bylaws, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. The guy shows up, I think the next week, or let's say between a week and 10 days later, and he comes to my unit to assess. I had to explain this all over again, which to me tells me that, again, they're not being upfront. They're just saying, "We need you to go up to the roof." I show the man the pictures of what's going on, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is like something considerably dangerous. You shouldn't be dealing with this." This is what the plumber says. They went up to the roof. I have proof that they went up to the roof, and it was done. Now, mind you, I'm a lay person. I don't know professional plumbing. It did look from my small observation that they were doing a long snaking of the building's pipe from top down to bottom. But again, I don't know what they actually did. Which brings me to my next point, is that when they told me that they were coming and they tried to make sure that I would be home, I said, "Sure, yeah, I'll be home that day, that's fine. And I also want a receipt. I want a receipt of what's going on." Namely because I am a judicious person. I am an organized person when it comes to certain things. And They've given me one before when they did it in Thanksgiving. I have that invoice somewhere. So the lady said, okay, sure, but I think at this point they're just trying to get me off the phone. They were not expecting that when it was a week or so later, I'm calling back for the receipts. And so I called the vice president, like, hey, I have emails, I haven't gotten a receipt, blah, blah, blah. He was like, okay, yeah, sure, I want to know how I will get that, but I'll talk to the property management people and get that for you. A week later, nothing happened. So I call him again, hey, where's my receipt? Then there's a lot of hesitation. And then he goes and brazenly says, I don't think it's your business. What is any business of yours? So then I had to let him know, baby, it is my business. And according to the Florida legislator, the last few sessions, they have made sure that we have rights as participants in the HOA because y'all HOA boards be hiding information. And specifically, y'all know that you guys have to make documents available because guess what? If there's no paper, it didn't happen. You have birth certificates, you have death certificates. When you get a degree, you get a big paper mounted on the wall. Side note, I never got mine, but I paid the student loans on it. Insurance, you have a whole declaration of what is covered and what is not covered. In enslavement times, there were paperwork on the enslaved people. If there's no paper, it did not happen. And he accused me of saying, well, are you trying to do insurance fraud? I said, no, but what I really should have said is I can if I want to. You're not the judge or the jury. If I wanted to today file a fraudulent insurance claim on my unit, I can. And then if the state of Florida wants to take it up with me, they can. You have to allow me to do that crime if I wanted to because it's outside of your purview what I want to do with paperwork that I'm entitled to. He started understanding that I was not letting it go and that I knew the laws. And he said, okay, well, we'll give you a paper, a letter saying that, you know, this was done and blase swaze. But he still refused to give me the actual invoice. To keep myself sane, I said, okay, I'll take that. Sure. But that's not what I asked for. He was pissed. But he called me back about an hour and said, you can go next Tuesday to office hours and you can get this letter. It'll be made out for you. And I said, thank you. I went Tuesday, nothing. I went Thursday, it was closed. It's Tuesday and Thursdays for the office hours. I was gonna go back every Tuesday, every Thursday until we have another meeting in the fall and get that letter. And had I not gotten that letter, I would have shamed them again and told them that they say they're gonna do things and they're not. Long story short, or really long story long, I got the letter. And the letter is thorough, I will say that. What I really like about it is that it says that the association assumed full responsibility to correct the issue and notes that you have not been charged for any of the work performed. That day, they also sent an email, a very long email titled Building Plumbing Notice Resident Cooperation Meeting. And in the email, it just says like, you know, this is a very old building. We need your help because we can't possibly afford it to replace the piping that's 40 plus years old. So I feel like these two kind of put me at ease for what I wanted to do in the future. And what do I want to do in the future? I want to resale. That's my bottom line. I don't do anything for one purpose. There's always a second motive that I have, usually. And in my reselling the property, I would feel horrible knowing that basically I didn't get what I got and I didn't do to my best the resolution of the problem and get it fixed. Now, if it was my fault, I would have fixed it on my own. But since it wasn't my fault, I made sure that I did my best to resolve it on their end. And that makes me feel better when I go to resell it. And before in reselling, I didn't feel as confident and I felt like I was gonna have to do a lot of concessions money-wise because I don't have the confidence. I feel like there's this little secret about this apartment and I'm gonna have to show them the money. Now with everything I have, I don't feel that much. I don't feel that way so much. What I do not like is that these people have a say in my expensive asset. And that's why I need to get out. The ideal thing would be to take this out of their hands and get like a single family home that I am not needing to deal with them, as well as a single family home that is not in an HOA. I would make a lot of profit on renting it out. But for me to rent it out, they're going to put me through so much hell, probably because they know I'm picky. as far as like, I will not back down. They've retaliated before to me. I would not be surprised if they did it again. And I don't want to give anyone that power. So I'm going to do my best in this tough Florida condo market. So what is the plan? The plan is to renovate like crazy in a few years. And I have a few years because our reserves are increasing as a year. I think we're doing 25, 50, 75, 100. So I think I have a good 3 years for that to happen. And in those 3 years, I will do my best to shoot my shot, because I think this will be a lot more attractive once I can put on the listing 75% of the reserves are there, or even 100%. And at that point, I'm going to make it beautiful in here, and I will put it on the market, God willing, for an honest price. But it's not going to be drastically low, at least at this point. I don't have to do it low now because I have resolved all of the issues that are known at the moment. I may do it slightly low so that I can hopefully do a bidding war, but I plan to make this place immaculate because it can get there. You know, it has great bones. That's why I bought it. And I think it will be very hard for someone to resist it because it is a beautiful unit once it's all done. And then I'm hoping to get an offer. And once I get that offer, I will 100% disclose. And if necessary, I will make a slight concession. But I think now I'm more emboldened because I will have all the proof. I will have this letter with the HOA's letterhead on it. I will have this emails. I will have all the evidence of how this started in November and me talking in the meeting. I can tell a story and let them be rest assured should this happen again. And hopefully I can tell them this ain't happened in 3 years because they fixed it. I made them. But should this happen again, you have the recourse, and no dime will come from you as long as you pay your HOA dues every month. So then my question to you and to me is like, would you take that? Would you take a beautiful unit, a fairly priced unit, but it had that disclosure? And I'm gonna say, honestly, I would not. So you're like, Elise, well, does that make sense? I'm just telling you my honest opinion. But just because I wouldn't buy it doesn't mean someone else wouldn't buy it. When I fell in love with this place, there were rules that I had to, or not rules, there were stipulations that I didn't know about in the beginning when I fell in love with it, that I was made to find out later, and I still accepted it. There were a little bit more like of things that I didn't want to deal with, but I loved it enough. And at the end of the day, I only need one buyer. Just like you need one partner when you're looking for one, and you only need one job when you're on a job search. You just need one. And people are always in need of real estate for divorce, for disease, for job displacement, things like that. So I just need one buyer, and I feel like an honest presentation will get me that buyer that I need. So now let's talk about why I feel like HOAs need to be dissolved, and why I'm going to tell you right now, do not be surprised if you see HOAs or a mechanism for HOAs to be dissolved coming soon in our zeitgeist. And that is because these HOAs are becoming very problematic, and they're expensive problems for the communities that they're supposed to govern. Now, I'm doing a little bit of my research on it. I have learned that HOAs were made for municipalities, the cities that they live in, to kind of skirt responsibilities of making sure certain things were taken care of. They push that responsibility on a contrived HOA, and that is the HOA's responsibility. But they cause so much problems in Florida and in other places because either they're too, strict, or they're too neglectful. And honestly, it's just too much power of a minority on someone's large, expensive asset of a home. And instead of doing what they're supposed to do, the results that are happening lately is that there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of lawsuits, and there are a lot of disheveled communities run by HOAs. When HOAs are running right, they look beautiful and pristine. But have you ever noticed an HOA where the community is disheveled and you can tell that there's issues in the family of that HOA, or between the HOA and the community? The paint's nasty, the lawns aren't kept, there are cars in the driveway, the grasses are just extremely unorganized. Like, you can tell when an HOA has gone bad. The balconies look a mess, a whole bunch of things. And I think with enough dissatisfaction, people are going to get fed up. And as much as they can be made, I know there is an option for them to be unmade. And I think that's happening in the next probable 10 to 15 years. I would not be surprised if we see that more often. And all I know at this point is that I'm willing to give it a college try to get out of it. I know it's an uphill battle because I'm in Florida and condos are not things that people want. But there is a possibility once we get our ish together in Florida through these painful laws that are requiring people to spend an awful lot of money. The whole goal is to get us up to date to be able to handle disasters like hurricanes, disasters like plumbing issues in the building, disasters like roofs needing to replace, disasters like insurance. That's the whole point. We hope. I'm glad it's over. I'm so glad it's over. And I like to finish things that I started. So, I mean, believe it or not, I have been trying to give you guys an update, but I have been waiting on the paperwork. I need this paperwork. Now that I have the paperwork, we can put this to rest and move on with our lives. And I will say nothing has happened since. Even when they started doing stuff on the roof, I was looking to see if there was any reflux that came out. It did not, and everything has been working beautifully. Thank God. I have officially been made whole. Thank you guys so much for watching my journey. I hope this helps one person, at least if they're thinking about getting into an HOA, they have an honest review from someone who is dealing with some issues that aren't always positive. I'm not telling you not to buy something in HOA, but I hope to spread education about what could happen so you make a educated decision based on all the risks, or a good amount of the risk and a good amount of the benefits. And I feel empowered after this process. I feel emboldened now to be able to sell it for as top a dollar as I can get, because I don't know how top dollar it can be, but it's a good place to be in. And this is also for someone who hates fighting against like the big man. It is overwhelming at times, but when you need to take a break, but get right back up. There's no need to get ignorant. There's no need to get violent. You just have to resist and be relentless and be on their ass. So let me know any comments that you guys have or any questions that you guys have. Please leave them below down in the comment section. Please like this video. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and I will see you guys next Thursday.